Hello everyone and welcome to this very simple, very fun video. You could see here I am hanging out at my own dock and marina. Now this may become an official build if enough of you request it, and I may go ahead and make some changes, place it in other parts of the map, update it. Right now it's just a dock, very simple for tying off boats, and this little vehicle ramp here. But what do I really need here is a lifeguard shack. So we're going to be building a very simple and kind of elegant lifeguard shack for photos, videos, for whatever type of gameplay or roleplay you may want to be doing. Of course, there are tons of examples. So what are we going to base it off of? Just sort of a generic type of lifeguard hut. You could see they're really cute, really small, and have probably, well, let's see. Inside them we have, that's nice, have kind of just this, like a place to watch the beachgoers, binoculars, a radio, nothing too crazy. We're not doing a full build of like a lifeguard center, so just a very small, simple structure. Inside the game, here we are. I definitely do want to go more on the side of traditional instead of fully modern like. So let's see, we want to get a nice width that we can fit, kind of a wraparound balcony. This is 7 blocks tall, so that means we could put a nice little roof. Something even slanted would be really cute, like that almost. So we'll see how that, like that. And then on the back, I'm not quite sure how we'll tie it in, but we'll see. In essence, I like the sloped roofs because they give you sort of a better advantage when you're inside at the sky and things. And then of course we seal it off, so that way it's enclosed. That back is bothering me. I'm gonna have to think about how to, well, either we do this like that, which might be the way to go about this, and then of course make it swoop down on the exterior. Interior, we're just going to delete all that and delete that. Okay, so we do have now a flat spot there for the front and the window and whatnot. I kind of like that. I mean, the angled pieces do give us some sort of, do impede us a little bit, but we'll see how we work through that. In essence, this is all going to be window. Now, this is still 7 blocks tall. I'm probably just going to leave it open rather than putting an actual door that opens and closes. So that way it just less bodies, easier for the graphics and whatnot. Go into Windows. Let's see. So right now we can see that if we put that, we'll have to put some side windows as well. But you know what? I think turning them towards the inside might actually kind of show the shape a little bit more, because it'll define that kind of front face. So I think this is gonna be nice, and then we just need a couple of little blocks just like that, and over here just like that. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and paint that black right away, just because I want them to stand out against the rest of the shape. Is that too tall, like too high up? Maybe. Definitely don't need that, but like if I do move it down some, because you really want to be able to sit and observe people on the beach without looking up at the sky. So we do have our nice little roof line, but in essence something like that might work. So it's like a guard shack almost. Now while I do like this design, I do like these curved windows probably more. So I'm going to go ahead and actually scrap this. And this is just kind of some of my process of my design development and whatnot. I mean, it is unpredictable. You get different results every time, and that's kind of the way designing works. But I think modern, something in between modern and traditional is kind of what I'm going to be going for here. So as long as the windows are big enough to fit against that. Perfect. Okay. Now, because it's a building, not a vehicle, I really can leave this middle part empty and then just join them together, and we'll end up with a little bit more of a seamless design here. Now, as far as this is concerned, that is a problem, the bottom corner of that window. So sometimes, you know, I could do stuff like that, or alternatively, you'd put a angled window piece once you find the right one, just like that. And then up here, you can see it's 3x2, so we can grab our 3x2 window, put that in. I think that actually be probably pretty good. So you can sit in here and you can kind of see left and right. Maybe a little bit longer, but I really don't want to go too large here, just because I want the building to kind of remain in a cute shape, let's call it. So what I can do now is put a roof. So in this case, I don't have that nice slant, but this does give us a few other benefits, such as putting a flag on the roof. Usually Lifeguard shacks have these flags on the roof, so we're going to do something like that. Close that in, make it look nice and cute, nice and well thought out as well. So that works for me. Now I'm not moving them in just yet because I want to first finish all the symmetrical work before I actually move it in. So that would include putting the railing. Now, do I want to close it probably on one side? That actually does make a little bit more sense. So you do have an actual space inside, but we will put the balcony wrapping around the whole thing, and then of course the ramp on the front. So we'll go and grab the other railing pieces that I need. We'll need a couple middle segments for this, like that, and see if I space it by 3 or by 2. And then we will need that front ramp. So where we have the ramp will be on the same side as our door. Now, I'm not a fan when spacing doesn't align, such as like what you're seeing here. So can that be done better? Maybe. Let's go with a spacing of 2. 2, 2. See, and then I'd put that there, and that's still not great. So ultimately, putting a spacing of 4 does end up with that nice edge there. And since we are not doing symmetrical work now, which is fine, I'm going to put this, but now I need an end piece, end piece right here. All right. Yes, just like that. All right. So this piece here also will be an end piece to there. That's why I was confused. And we will seal it all off, close up the railing, make it nice and safe, just like this. Perfect. Okay. And now, with that done, let's do the ramp. Now for the ramp, I actually do realize that I will need not the end piece, and this will also be a proper corner. Now, I do want to have railings, but at the same time, I actually really did want my ramp to be at a little bit more of a gradual angle rather than the same sort of sharp angle as the stairs. So my preference would have been something like that. So then I really have only a few options. Either I make my railings out of the same material and then I ditch all these for sort of handmade railings such as this, which I've done before and it actually does look quite good in buildings. Or we stick with the more modern design of this and then deal with it when it comes to the railings, or deal with it when it comes to the ramp. Now in this case, I'm gonna go with the handmade railings. So a little bit of waste of time for all that other stuff I've done, but by making my own railings, I can set them at the right height, which I actually like when they are a little bit lower than the ones we get in the game. So they're only 3 blocks high. I kind of find that a more agreeable size, especially because when they're this high you still don't fall off. And then it gives us the added benefit of being able to match the ramp with it as well. So this way we could do that and open that front up. Okay, that's not good. This is what I need. Yes. And then this and this. Okay. So as far as the ramp is concerned, now I can actually push the ramp out even further, and therefore no matter how deep the sand is or how deep the beach is, this will always fit nicely. And we can go down to there, and then we're just gonna make this match like that and like that. Now for this, do I want to overshoot it or do I want to stop it? I think most likely I'll want to stop it just like this, and we'll have to kind of close it off now because it is the different size of like it makes it end up being a too wide, and that's not the end of the world, especially if we want to put a little detail like that. That looks kind of nice. Now the one thing we can't put is a riser, otherwise it'll, like I said, it'll take up 2 slots, so maybe I just leave it like this, and that should be pretty nice. Back with the symmetry, I will add a little window on the back for them to peek out what's behind. Okay, cool. We'll add the lights later, but for now that's a good shape. Now I need these stilts. So seeing the distance or depth of that there, I can drop this down the similar size. I mean, I can go even deeper. It doesn't really matter. That's going to be hidden. I'll show you how I'm going to be doing that add-on aspect. So then in this case, the bracing, see that's too steep. So we got to do this. And now you see the issue with selecting kind of a random size. You come across situations like this where the bracing doesn't really work normally. It can't really work, but we do need that bracing. So what I can do is stretch the whole building out. Now these windows will actually prevent anyone from walking in front. So I think by moving the whole building back a little bit, it'll actually give us a size that is agreeable with us. So something like this. Let's just do a quick test. Okay, so we got to move it one more in. So I was almost on the right track. I moved it out too much. So here, and then we get a perfect cross brace. Now in the other direction, it'll be a little bit difficult. You'll have to deal with kind of a gusset plate situation here, but that's not too bad. So that actually works quite well. We'll close off the rest of this, seal off the roof. Now as far as the window is concerned, this actually kind of helps our window because we can now take this and move it in. Sometimes there's unintended benefits to doing something like this. So that actually looks much better. It fits inside that pocket. You'll probably still have to crouch to get underneath the window, but at least you can get access. Now as far as this back part goes, this is a total wild card. I haven't thought about this. So we will do that. Keep in mind, as the thing gets pushed together, the bracing will change. And we'll do the same up front as well, just to have it easier on us. And see, that's not right. That's the right height. So in the back, it actually has to go up at a different height. And then we can put that gusset there. And of course, as we push it together, that's going to appear a little bit more natural. Now that most of the symmetrical work is done, of course, painting will be a little bit more difficult, but it's a small structure. It's not going to be a big deal. So this can be taken and pushed together. There we go. So that does give you a nice window here, gives you a nice little space. The ramp looks good. All this looks great. So I'm quite happy with this. Inside, like we had, we're going to put a little table for watching the safety of the folks. We're going to put a chair right center here. And again, the nice thing with doing it like this, with the non-symmetrical, I mean, is that now a 2 wide seat ends up being in the exact center. That does seem a little low, so we're going to push it up a bit. Consider it like a high-rise chair. I mean, in that case, I probably could just do that. Okay. Now, some simple decor, not the wheel, but the actual, what's called a decor. I always use these as Lifeguard rings instead of using like colored buoys. So I think that will work in this case. I could put only one on that side, it doesn't really matter. And of course we need the flag. So for the flag, we'll go with a small flag. And we have a lot of different countries, so we can choose to use whatever country we feel this is in. So whether it be Canada, or if we want to go down here to the UK or the US. For me, sometimes I just picture the typical Lifeguard shack with a US flag, something like in California or Florida, so probably going to leave it as this. One other thing that you commonly see are sort of weather tracking apparatus, so you can track the wind, you could track stuff like that, so I think that works. I will also build a surfboard that we can attach on the side of it. And now for the coloring. For this, I think kind of a blue color would work perfectly. And of course, like I had previously done, we're going to paint the windows black. And of course, I will have to paint much of it, and I'm not going to go through and show you just me painting. But in essence, I think white accent pieces would be quite nice, so we could make the bracing actually be white. Alright, it's looking pretty nice. Very simple. I mean, most everybody can make a build like this, so I'm not saying this is anything special, but just my thought process and how I get to build something such as this. So visually now, this is kind of what I'd imagine. I can go ahead and change, or not change, but like update this exact wood color. And sometimes I like to go and make random planks that just appear a little different, like that. Just gives it a little bit more life to kind of looking like a wooden piece. Now, it would probably be painted, so I don't really think wood is necessarily how they would have this area, especially now if I change the direction of that wood planking. But that's where we get to have a little bit of fun and kind of just do something that feels right rather than is what may necessarily be done in a real life situation. So that's where I kind of just exercise a little bit of creative freedom. So I think something like this is good enough, and then inside I'll continue that. Now what's interesting, and some of you may know this, is there are a ton of different flags that designate whether you are allowed to swim or not. Green is the one that says yes, you can swim. Red means hazard, no swimming. Yellow is caution. So we can see what it is we want to put. In essence, if we put orange, that just means caution. That's probably kind of the easiest one to have. As for a surfboard, I'm going to make it very simple, very just generic and kind of artistic, and we'll see how it actually works. But in essence, it'll just consist of a few pieces like this. Kind of thinking in terms of like almost Lego-esque style building. Kind of looks a bit like a casket, but hopefully when I put the white stripe down the middle, it actually looks a little bit more like a rescue surfboard. Nice. So I think that's pretty good. On the surfboard, I guess I could put a fin. Now, I don't know enough about surfing which side actually has the fin. I think it goes on the back, so then in theory that would be the front, but we could do that. Anyway, I added a light and a light inside. On the roof, we have a lot of space, so we can put one of those big solar panels, and that'll keep the whole thing charged up. So that can be just dropped right in, as long as it's not clashing with my light, which, perfect. So that gives the right amount of, or that should give a decent amount of juice. In addition to that, of course, we will have just a battery. A megaphone will actually look quite nice on the roof as well, so we can go ahead and put 2 of them like that for, in essence, yelling at people if they are not doing what they should be doing. So that looks cool. Now, as far as equipment goes, there's really a couple things that I can imagine a lifeguard would need. Well, a lot of things, but we're going to keep it simple here. So we got, of course, the first aid kit. We're going to want to put binoculars in here, and I will make them white. We're going to want to put a whistle. Now this is a dog whistle, but again, the point will get across. And lastly, I want to put a flashlight in case there is some nighttime style of rescue. So with these things in the inventory here, or better yet, if I make a shelf or a cabinet in the back corner here that can include some of this stuff, that might be even better. There is the cabinet, and what I'll do is just for the time being move it out, and that actually gives me a couple of slots. You see that this is 3 by 3, so we have 9 slots to put all kinds of stuff. So I'm going to start off the top with the first aid kit and make our way down with a bunch of other stuff. So first aid can be all through the top. Binoculars, you really only need 1 pair. Whistle, we need the 1. And flashlight, again, we're just going to put 1. Now, on the bottom, we can put a fire extinguisher. And then this can actually be cleaned back up to have nothing. I brought that back, and I'm just going to call this the equipment cabinet. So that lives inside there. Now inside here, we need to have a breaker. So that's going to be the batteries down here. That's fine. The breaker itself is how the power is going to be communicated and pretty much ensured that, you know, things are on. So I can put this kind of like a little power box. So we'll put power on this. We'll have it on. And what I'll do, A is always hot and B is to the other stuff. This one can go direct to the battery. Speakers, the light, the radio antennas, even though they actually don't need to be plugged in. I'm not going to put a radio. I'm keeping this more or less very minimal functional. But what I can do here is put a or audio, and I can put not a speaker but a microphone and a toggle button. Now the toggle button, I'm actually not going to do that. I'm going to go ahead and put an instrument panel. It's going to be a very primitive microcontroller, a very small building, but in essence we'll have 4 buttons for 4 options that we can have in this little Lifeguard shack. And what they're going to consist of is the spotlight. Well, first of all, the interior light. That can be on a separate switch. So spotlight, I'm considering all these to be kind of like life-saving gear. So spotlight, buzzer, and that can be on a separate line, and microphone. Now microphone, I can actually have on a push. That can be 4. Buzzer can be also on a push, 3. We'll see if I use 2, and spotlight is on 1. The reason why I didn't want to put the main interior light switch is because I actually like to have that on a wall in a very prominent location, just for ease and access, and for the added benefit of I can just simply turn this default state on and have it so it's running all the time, especially for something that I plan on just using as decor. I'm quite happy to have it running like that. Now these here, like I said, we have a couple different things just for the fun of having them. One piece of equipment that I actually did forget is a radio. Now for the radio, I'm actually going to build it in to this. It'll be kind of a part of the table, just like that. So that's cool. Leaves the table a little more modern. And then we just need our very basic instrument panel with purely just buttons. I'm going to put it on the roof for now, but in essence what it has is a couple of different things. We have number 1, which is the spotlight here. We have number 2, which is nothing. Number 3 is a buzzer, and number 4 is activate the microphone. By activating the microphone, it will actually go to the megaphones, so we can now yell at people through the microphone. Now the one thing I didn't put yet is the buzzer, and the buzzer will buzz at people. It's an air horn. That's the idea. So I can put it here. I could either have it facing out as such, or we can have it, you know, at a different place, but I don't think that looks terrible. I think maybe downward is a little bit better, but it also kind of clashes with the design, so I'm just going to face it inward so it's not really bothering anyone. We'll make that 3, and we're going to make this a very, very annoying air horn. So I liked around 100. That works. So everything is powered up. Everything is connected. Now where I can put this is potentially either under the seat like that or somewhere else. Now because I'm not even using channel number 2, I can push these down, make this smaller, whatever. Lots of different options of how to present this. Channel 2 was nothing, channel 3 was the buzzer, channel 4 was the activate the microphone, and of course I have to have that connected. That's fine. Yeah, let's move this down beneath our little bench, and I could also make it look like another piece of kind of built-in gear, even if it looks like a first aid kit or something, but in essence that color always kind of just looks like something. A little plant in the corner for just a minimal piece of decor, and there you have it. I mean, short of a couple coloring mistakes that I may find throughout, I think that will work pretty well. So some of you may have the question, how on earth do I make this become something that's part of the scenery, something that is in the area that I want it to, for example, on the beach here. So to do that, we got to press escape. We'll go to the add-on editor. Inside add-on editor, of course, you can select new add-on. We will select the island we are on currently. You have a ton of different selection, and on this island we will go to edit objects. Now inside the edit objects menu on the bottom here, you can see you can add a variety of different things. What we want to add is a vehicle. It's technically considered a vehicle, even though here it is. So we can grab it and place it right here. Now F centers us on it, so now we are revolving around this object. Of course, it's not facing in the right direction, so we can click on it, and then down here you have your rotate tab. We can rotate it to face the water, just like that. Now it seems a little too close to the beach, or too close to the water, so we can move it back as well, and we can lower it down. So now that ramp is still not touching, so it's no good. We got to keep going down until it looks like this. So yes, now we've buried some of our bracing, but in essence that is how this would look. Now keep in mind it's on a slanted piece of ground here. If we do move it to a flatter location like this, by the time I drop it down, not as much of the bracing will be covered. So that actually works. Now one very important thing to keep in mind is you have to turn on this is static. Otherwise it will glitch out because it's interacting with the ground. So is static, and this last one you can't really see it because of this eye, but it says is invulnerable, meaning it can't get damaged. And now we just hit test location. And there we have it. So we got our lifeguard hut. The light's already on. I can move in. We got our equipment cabinet. Perfect. I could sit here. Spotlight. Nice. Buzzer if I want to call someone in. And I have the microphone which toggles those two microphones up on the roof. If I turn up the wind a little bit, we're actually going to see the flags. So that's quite nice, and if I turn up the wind even more, you'll see them even more. So you have access to that. You can see what the wind is like, and you have access to the beach to watch kind of what is going on. The one thing I do have to change is actually the ramp. So these legs most likely are going to be on a beach, and the beach will most likely slope down towards this left side, so that actually makes it harder for this to work properly. So for this, we're just going to grab all of the ramp here and just move it downward. So we can grab this, and I got to move it 2 blocks for every one down. Move it 2 blocks left and 1 block down. So now we are at this level, 2 across, 1 down. Now we have a long ramp, probably too long, so we can go back I think if I put it here, this is a fairly reasonable space. It'll show some of my bracing while not totally looking out of place. So we add 1 and 2, join all those in. Now keep in mind that surfboard has to not be buried, so there may be some kind of finicky things to keep in mind here. But of course, the surfboard won't be buried because this bottom part of the stairs is still at the ground level, whereas the top part of the building is now exposed. We see clearly the bracing. So there you have it. Believe it or not, this whole building was made because I really wanted to have a nice photo shoot location for this OSAR truck. I'm actually currently in the process of releasing this truck and wanted to kind of have your stereotypical call it Lifeguard picture of, you know, this truck next to this nice little Lifeguard hut. And for me, this is exactly why I built it. But I thought, you know what, it would make a fun little video to kind of go through and show people my design process. Now, the building is very simplistic, probably too simplistic. Like, look at those edges. I'd think some coloring scheme would be in order, but that's all styling, artistic points and whatnot. Like back here, this should all be painted, and if I really want to go the extra mile, would I make the building sort of white with blue parts? Like, would that be more appealing, or kind of at least make it a little bit more interesting? So like the edges or corners and tops are blue, maybe. Also playing around with the coloring scheme, getting a bit of a darker shade and running it through here or here could also be nice, even if I do that. So there is just some little extra, there are some extra steps that could be considered to kind of take this building to the next level. I'm not sure how I feel about that full coloring around the bottom, but let's see in person. See, like, that actually kind of looks cute. So something along these lines in terms of the building. Just again, it's a decor piece. It doesn't have to be crazy detailed or crazy functional at all, but it should look polished enough that it's not like I just decided to, you know, throw together something random. So that might be kind of a nice way to do it. Also, we do have the door pieces that can be used for things like this, where if you attach it like that, it kind of draws an edge to the building itself. The only trick is for something like this, it now looks like the building is kind of hanging off. But again, until you see it in person, or at least in practice here, you won't really know. So to me, that actually looks kind of good. It looks like the building is now on top of this versus it being kind of just mounted. So that's cute. Yeah, I think that works quite nicely. Just gonna throw one more buoy right here, and that is it. Spent some time looking at it, and I made some visual changes. You could see I used the small solid rocket fuel to kind of look like railing. So in here it actually looks a little better. And I did push this out by 1 block, so you could actually walk in front easily. In the other version you couldn't, so that is nice. Added ladders, you can climb up to the top to service any of this stuff, and put a beacon light up there that can be turned on with the button in here. So you have this in case you have like an emergency, you have the buzzer You could talk on the microphone, and of course the spotlight for nighttime operations. Now I see that's a different color, so I think it's quite important to make things match or be uniform, or if you have a reason to force them to be different. For example, making the top two a flip switch could be kind of the separating device for these two. They're lights, and the bottom two are push to be kind of used as buzzers and microphones. Now, again, the nice thing with the interior light, we could constantly have it on or off, or I can also put a simple microcontroller to make it turn on if it's nighttime. So I've made a couple of microcontrollers, and you can see that there's a variety of different ones. This one has a disable button, and this one has a force on button, but in essence, all they do is read off a clock and tell the light to turn on if the clock is at a certain time. So I actually could put a clock somewhere in this room to kind of look, you know, so if you're on the shift, if you're on the clock, you can watch and wait till your shift passes. So we could put a clock right on the back wall there, and just make sure we've filled it in so it looks nice, and plugged it into the electricity. Now, with that being plugged into the electricity power, I can actually read off of this data point from 0 to midnight, 1 to midnight. Now, I've actually already gone ahead and tested which times I want this to turn on, and I found that 0.69 and 0.33 in that time range. So when the clock is either greater than 0.69 or less than 0.33, I want it to be on. Now there's a disable button and there's a force on button. The force on button is what my light switch would be, and we don't really need a disable button in this instance, so I'm actually just gonna push it away like that. So now this can be plugged in there, this can be plugged into that light, and this is the force on. So you can see the light's off at this time, but if I go into the custom menu and change this, you actually see there the light turned on. Now the nice thing with this is if we are leaving this creation and kind of leaving it to its own device, it would be nice to have that force on button automatic, or sorry, not force on, the light come on automatically. I do this for my OMA dock, I do this for a bunch of my static creations. Now since this is a small microcontroller, and since this creation always sort of sits on the ground, I could technically put it under the step like this, where it's never going to be seen. So that's definitely a place to consider. Or I can kind of try to hide it within some of these walls. For example, down here, we just have 3 blocks of nothingness. Above it's the equipment, but that would be a logical place to hide it. Now, I don't want to make this heavy. I don't want to make this have a bunch of microcontrollers and a bunch of programs, just because I want it to easily run with the rest of the game, not cause lag or anything like that. So in essence, there we have it. This is kind of what I would envision I want to leave as my final product. Maybe I make some minor changes here and there, but the idea is exactly what I wanted to do. So that sort of works quite nicely. So driving up to it, it actually looks quite nice, and I think the colors even match with the Stormworks type colors, so that is cool. Yeah, I'm really liking that. And the nice thing is it just kind of adds some life to the scenery, and I always find there's a fine balance. Like even over there, my dock, or the part where you drive on the ramp, doesn't look that good because there's no road leading up to it. The dock is pretty nice, like kind of integrated with that. I could do it a little bit different and better, but in essence, little things like that do add. So now you ask yourself, okay, well, I built something like this static lifeguard house, and I want to end up placing it on my map for use. So we're going to go ahead and build an actual add-on that will spawn these little lifeguard houses on all the beaches across the map. So we can see on the map, obviously we have a little beach on the Coast Guard outpost. We have some beaches here on this island, Island of Donk. And then we have the fishing village. We have this little cute island here that has already a house and something, so we could put one there. So in essence, we're just kind of doing the public works side of things for the game, which gives us, in essence, a bit more life and stuff for the map to enjoy. So once we find out how many of the beaches we actually have around the map, then we can jump into the add-on editor. Now, we'll make a fresh new add-on, call this the Lifeguard Houses, or Lifeguard Shacks. And then we start to add locations. So the easiest one is the creative base, as we did, and you go to edit objects, as we did. Take the latest version. Now there are different and sometimes better ways. I'm going to show you the easiest way. This is intended for kind of more beginner type players, because other add-on editing involves editing the code, which is found up here. So we're not going to do that. We're just going to go and physically place this on the map. So once this is physically placed, as we did, we make it static, we make it invulnerable, doesn't need to be destructive, and we don't want it to show up on the map, otherwise it'll show up as a vehicle, so we don't really want that. So this kind of works. It has a decent view of the beach at a decent location. So when we're happy with this, we can go back to the overview editor, and then in here we'll find the next beach. So you could see we got all these islands. Here is the mainland beach. I think that one is one where we have to add it. Now the water, yeah, there we go. By turning that on, it actually shows us where the water is, and this beach over here needs a lifeguard shack. So that's kind of a good central position for one. We can go ahead and rotate this and just make sure that all the legs are beneath the sand. Otherwise, you're going to end up with something strange. So they're kind of buried. That's fine. Again, static. Again, invulnerable. So that does it. The Key Cottage, that's the cute location that I like here. So yeah, you see that it has a cottage. It has a little boat. This is almost like a private beach. You almost think this doesn't need a lifeguard shack, but we're just going to put one anyways, because maybe it is like a hotel rather than some private type situation. If it is a hotel, privately owned, then they still need to have their own lifeguard on duty. Now, when it's like this, sloped, you see that we end up with a bit of an issue where this floats above. Now, the obvious thing you can do is make a version that drops all the way down. Yes, you could do that, but what I'm going to try to do instead is place it somewhere that allows a little bit of an easier, gentler slope. So something like that could work. See, the back is buried, but that's fine. They're just bracing. That is good. And it's kind of far from everything, so it does give a good beach overview. This is something that helps immensely. I'm not sure who made this, so I can't give credit to that specific person, but I did find it as I was sort of browsing through some of the Stormworks forums and chats and stuff. But in essence, someone actually went through and took every single last piece of beach and land and everything and put it into this sheet to make it super easy for us to find. So for example, this here, the Sawyer Southeast Fishing Island, they actually did, I believe, rename that after the fact. So this would be what's between 14.2 and 16.2. So it should be 15.2, should be that fishing island. So if we go to here and find 15 and 2, and I said fishing island, I meant fishing village, 15 and 2, right on cue. So I suggest you find that or take a screenshot of my video, just because it will let you find specific locations so much easier without having to constantly kind of scroll through the whole list and possibly not find it, etc., etc. So that is a really, really neat feature to have. So that one was added there. Another beach is down there. I added that one. We got to add up here as well. So it would make sense to put it on 3.9. So 3.9 has the town, I think, Olsen Bay right to the left. So we could put it right on the cusp of the town, which would be here. I actually do believe there's like a little church and graveyard cemetery there. I guess good for Halloween. But in essence, this location gives sort of a view of this portion of the beach. Now granted, we do have another large part of the beach over there, but is that a public beach? Is that where people go swimming? Maybe they do it at their own risk, etc., etc. I mean, I don't need to add a million lifeguard shacks. The add-on is very simple, just for people that want to give a tad more bit of life and buildings to their game without really doing a lot of work. So this here is the other part of the Olsen Bay. We could see how it looks. Okay, so okay, the cemetery is far away, so that's over there. So this is the big portion of the beach, and then I believe our lifeguard shack would be right here on the edge. So I think that works. We don't need one here, so I can go ahead and replace this location with a different one if I find one more. Yeah, there aren't that many sandy beaches. We have one here on the very corner, but I guess I could put one at 1 and 1. So if we jump back in to Stormworks and go to that, 1 and 1. Is this a beach where people will swim? I mean, I guess doesn't hurt to add. So I can go ahead and place that right there. And that should be it. Of course, I'm not going to put any in the winter area, the Arctic. And I don't really think I need one either. Like, I guess if we put one on Mayor Island, it will be on the north shore that has kind of a nice beach. See, I actually have the same thing done for this. And sorry, I guess you can't take screenshots because the text is too small. You could try, but probably won't really see much. So I believe this location is kind of a beach cove thing. So 2014. So in here, 20 and 14. And we could put that in this. Now, what separates a beach from the actual island in this island, I have no idea. But this one is one where I actually have one of my OMA docks and marina. So I think this location actually does work nicely for one of these. Just hope that's not exactly where it goes. So there I have it. I've placed it at 9 locations. And now what we can do, I'm gonna copy this, is save it. So now that it's saved, I actually can start a new game and open that add-on as part of my new game. So here, when we go to new game, you can enable add-ons, and we can just find what I just created, the lifeguard shacks, turn them on, and of course you can turn on or off whatever you want or don't want, but I always turn off certain things just to not interrupt my building. And once we're done with that, we'll do custom mode, Don't need the space for this. We do want these. We don't even need the search and rescue or search and destroy. Done. Okay, so spawned in. Of course, in this new version of the game, if you're playing kind of creative mode, you could unlock everything. Now, none of the little shacks are going to appear on your map. They're just little pieces of pretty much buildings that are scattered around. It's not a location you need to appear. But if we jump ourselves to here, there it is. So that actually worked quite nicely. It's at a pretty good location. It actually has a very good overview of the place. The flags are going. That's nice. And in here you can see we have the ability to turn on or off all of our lights. But if it is nighttime, the light inside will automatically turn on. So if we go now to another one of the locations, and here's kind of the one that's iffy because there's one here and one here, but let's jump to this location and kind of see where it is, how it is. Okay, we spawned in. Now it may take a second for the lifeguard shack to appear. There it is. And the light's on, as you can see. That is a nice location actually. Look at the mountains. Wow. Beautiful. So, with this here, and we make it daytime again. Climb up. And great overview of the beach. So that's a great location. This one over here, I mean, this one debatable, like if this is actually a beach people will swim at, but because it is a cove, I do think, or like a bay, I do think that it does make sense. And again, it just adds a little bit more. I know there's some search and rescue missions inside this bay, so having a little lifeguard shack would be kind of cute for that. Just for the sake of completion and my own kind of happiness, I'm gonna double check that the lifeguard shacks and my OMA marina work together. I checked two of the locations where the OMA marina was sort of near the lifeguard shack. One was there and the other was at this beach, but over here the marina's there and the lifeguard shack is like on this kind of south shore, if I recall. So they're not really close together. Yeah, that's here and the marina is over there. So that actually worked quite nicely. It works. And that was a fun little add-on. Nothing too complicated. Of course, very simple building. Very simple build, but it shows you my design process. It shows you how I actually place it alongside the inside the add-on editor, because now you're no longer having to, you know, test run a add-on. Instead, you've actually thrown it in and it is in the game. You can see it, you can use it, whatever it may be, and kind of enjoy it as it is. So thank you all for watching. Do want to give a huge shout out to all of my supporters. Thank you so much. They're my YouTube members and my Discord server boosters. The Discord server boosters give us additional perks. The YouTube members give me additional loving, and I really appreciate that. So thank you so much. I do want to thank the whole community. Everybody who subscribes, comments, likes the videos, participates, all that great stuff. I find that awesome. Thank you guys so much. And I want to thank my admin and moderator team on my Discord server. It wouldn't be the same without them, and of course the game developers. So thank you all for watching. Let us know in the comments, or let me know in the comments, what you think of this simple build. Maybe the add-on editing has helped you with one of your own projects, and let me know what you think for another idea I have, which is to build, drumroll, sort of a series of modern style mountain houses with a helipad. Almost think like James Bond villain type mansions in very remote type of locations that can just serve as bases. I've always been a fan of kind of mountainside buildings, probably not this high up, but they're somewhere lower. And it's going to be a simple build just like what I just did now, except it will feature the ability to spawn and despawn helicopters, kind of like the helicopter base for OMA, but a little bit different. Maybe I make it an OMA research station instead of a mansion. I think that would make a little more sense, but it's still going to have kind of mansion-y vibes. Anyway, let me know. See you next time, and happy Stormworksing, everyone.